In a world of easy answers, there is a place for courageous, critical inquiry. This is Questions Have Power. You have been summoned to serve as the jury. Your role is to weigh the evidence presented and deliver your verdict in our Deliberation Room, the comment section. The proceeding is about to begin.
This proceeding is now in session. Members of the jury and our esteemed panel in the Scholarly Sanctum, we now gavel in the Critical Inquiry Prosecution of the biblical text. As the proctor, my role is to secure the record and ensure this impartial proceeding is conducted with uncompromising forensic rigor. Tonight, the investigation escalates. Having indicted the dragon, Leviathan, in the sea, we now trace the evidence back to the origin on land. We open Case File 3.1, the Eden Indictment. We are prosecuting the foundational conversation in Genesis chapter 3 that introduced chaos into the created order.
I will read the testimony of the breach into the record from the King James Version. Genesis chapter 3, verses 1, 4, and 5. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. To guide this proceeding, we call upon our senior investigators, Dr. Eleanor Vance and Dr. Alistair Finch. Members of the jury, our investigation into the Eden indictment will proceed across 3 critical exhibits.
First, in Exhibit A, we prosecute the identity. Is the antagonist a beast of the field or a shining one from the divine council? Next, in Exhibit B, we prosecute the breach. Was the fall an outside attack on a perfect system or an inside job facilitated by the Creator's own design? And lastly, in Exhibit C, we prosecute the method. Is Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 the divine key to the mystery or an act of theological colonization? Dr. Vance and Dr. Finch will present their conflicting findings. Let us begin. We now proceed to Exhibit A as we prosecute the identity. Dr. Finch, you will prosecute the traditional understanding. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Proctor. Members of the jury, the text demands a singular verdict. The serpent is the biological humiliation of the adversary. I direct your attention to the evidence board. We must prosecute the author's explicit definition. The text defines him as a beast of the field. This is not just biology, it is polemic. The author is taking a supernatural, evil entity and stripping it of its rank, forcing it to wear the label of livestock. The evidence proves that the serpent is the title of a cosmic rebel who has been demoted by the narrative itself.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Dr. Vance, you will now dissect this position. You have 3 minutes.
Dr. Finch sees a demotion. I see a description of state. Here in the Scholarly Sanctum, we must go past the easy answers to the terrifying evidence of the text itself. I direct your attention to the evidence board. The Hebrew root visible here is a triple entendre. It implies serpent, to whisper, and specifically polished bronze. This entity is not just a reptile, it is a shining one. It radiates light. It acts as an oracle, offering secret knowledge. Your eyes will be opened. Furthermore, this radiance linguistically links it to the fiery serpent found in the prophets. The author of Genesis is describing a burning one, a radiant throne guardian who whispers forbidden knowledge. It is a rogue agent from God's own security detail, not a random animal.
The initial cases for Exhibit A have been presented. The advocates will now engage in a 4-minute scholarly interchange. Dr. Vance, you have indicted the traditional defense. Initiate the interchange.
Dr. Finch, you base your entire case on the phrase, beast of the field, but you are sanitizing the crime scene. You are ignoring the burning one, the fiery serpent, linked to this very word. This is historical malpractice. Are you analyzing the text, or are you protecting a Sunday school worldview that cannot handle a supernatural rival in the garden?
I am protecting the monotheism of the text, Dr. Vance. If you elevate the serpent to a divine peer, as you suggest, you are not prosecuting the Bible, you are resurrecting the very paganism the author intended to destroy. The author calls it a beast, specifically to humiliate your burning one. It is a polemic, not a biography.
You call it a polemic, I call it a cover-up. By reducing this entity to a talking snake, you stripped the fall of its cosmic weight. A beast cannot offer godhood. Only a member of the divine council, a peer of the realm, can make that offer with a straight face. You are stripping the antagonist of his rank to make the story safe.
I am not making it safe. I am making it structural. The serpent is not a monster, Dr. Vance. He is the challenger. Open the text. The very first question mark in the history of the universe comes from him. He introduces the concept of choice by introducing doubt.
Exactly. He weaponizes critical inquiry. That is not the behavior of livestock. That is the behavior of a superior intelligence acting with hostile intent. If God created a beast capable of outwitting humanity, then the game was rigged from the start.
It was not rigged. It was necessary. A universe without the capacity for anti-wisdom is a universe without the capacity for love. The subtlety of the serpent is the necessary counterweight to the innocence of the human. The serpent is not a mistake, Dr. Vance. He is the catalyst.
The arguments for Exhibit A have been entered into the record.
We now proceed to Exhibit B as we prosecute the origin of evil, an inside job or an outside attack. Dr. Finch, you will prosecute the traditional understanding. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Proctor. Jurors, the traditional case rests on the absolute sanitary integrity of the created order. Genesis chapter 1 declares the creation very good. I direct your attention to the evidence board. The text is explicit. It is a perfect, sealed ecosystem of divine order. The serpent represents a hostile pathogen, an external invasion of this perfect garden. The crime is one of cosmic trespass. Evil is not native to the system. It is a foreign contaminant that injected sin into a pristine world. The foundational model is clear. The serpent is an invader, not a resident.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Dr. Vance, you will now dissect this position. You have 3 minutes.
Dr. Finch offers a theological evasion. It is comfortable, but it ignores the most damning piece of evidence in the text. I direct your attention to the evidence board, specifically Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. The serpent is not a pathogen. It is a domestic product. It was manufactured by the Creator. The subtlety, the capacity for chaos, was woven into the fabric of creation from the beginning. This was not an outside attack. It was an inside job. This is the terrifying reality. The proceeding must indict not just the serpent, but the system that produced it. The origin of evil, jurors, is a structural necessity, not a design flaw.
The initial cases for Exhibit B have been presented. The advocates will now engage in a 4-minute scholarly interchange. Dr. Vance, you have indicted the traditional defense. Initiate the interchange.
Dr. Finch, look at the tactical reality. You have a superintelligent, supernatural burning one, a veteran of the cosmos, placed in a confined space with 2 inexperienced humans. This is not a test. It is asymmetric warfare. The outcome was mathematically guaranteed.
The disparity is undeniable, but it is not malevolent. It is structural. A test that you can pass without effort is not a test. It is a formality. The humans were not helpless, Dr. Vance. They were untested. The curriculum required a challenger that exceeded their current capacity to force them to ascend.
In a court of law, we call that entrapment. If the administrator places a hostile, superior intelligence in the garden, and that intelligence possesses security clearance to God's private commands, then the administrator is liable for the breach. God did not just allow the test, he manufactured the nemesis.
You are presuming the nemesis was the intended function. I am arguing it was the ontological risk of freedom. God created a being with the capacity for anti-wisdom. Why? Because a universe without the capacity for anti-wisdom is a robot factory, not a kingdom.
That is a theodicy, a defense of God, not an analysis of the crime scene. Look at the weapon. The serpent uses the truth to facilitate the fall. This is an inside job. The adversary is not invading the system. He is a feature of the system. And that makes the sovereign complicit in the disaster.
Precisely. The serpent is a feature. But Dr. Vance, you are indicting the sovereign for building a forge instead of a playpen. You want safety. The text describes the creation of dangerous sovereign dignity. You cannot forge a king without a dragon.
I want accountability. If I put a tiger in a cage with a child, I am the murderer, not the tiger. The original crime here is not rebellion. It is victimization by a superior power that should never have been allowed inside the perimeter.
And that is the seductive fiction of the victim mentality. The text refuses that comfort. It demands that the humans were capable of standing. The tragedy of Eden is not that they were overpowered. It is that they were fully equipped to rule the serpent, and they chose to listen to it instead. This was an abdication of sovereignty, not a defeat.
The arguments for Exhibit B are now on the record.
We now proceed to Exhibit C, as we prosecute Revelation chapter 12, verse 9, divine commentary or theological colonization. Dr. Finch, you will prosecute the traditional understanding. You have 3 minutes.
Members of the jury, the biblical canon is not a random library. It is a single, unified structure. This structure demands that the end is the only way to understand the beginning. I direct your attention to Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. The Greek text displayed here identifies him as that old serpent. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan. This text demands recognition as the master key. It is the divine cipher that unlocks the original mystery. The author of Revelation, under inspiration, confirms the true cosmic identity of the serpent from the very beginning. To read Genesis without this key is to analyze a crime scene with the lights off. It is willful blindness.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Dr. Vance, you will now dissect this position. You have 3 minutes.
Dr. Finch argues for a unified narrative, But history demands witness integrity. What he calls divine commentary, I must call theological colonization. This is a hostile, retroactive imposition. I call for the timeline evidence. By forcing a 1st century AD concept backwards onto a Bronze Age text, Dr. Finch is effectively gagging the witness. He is silencing the original author's voice to make it fit his modern theology. A rigorous investigation must ask what the text meant then, to them, not what we want it to mean 1,000 years later.
The initial cases for Exhibit C have been presented. The advocates will now engage in a 4-minute scholarly interchange. Dr. Vance, you have indicted the traditional defense. Initiate the interchange.
Dr. Finch, your unified narrative is a retroactive fabrication that commits a profound methodological violence. You are taking a text from the 1st century AD, Revelation, and using it to gag a witness from the 7th century BC, Genesis. But history demands witness integrity. How is this not theological colonization? You are invading the ancient text and forcing it to speak your modern language.
You call it colonization, I call it high-resolution rendering. Dr. Vance, you are treating the Bible like a pile of disconnected, dead artifacts. I see a single living organism. The end of the narrative does not gag the beginning, it unmasks it. Revelation is not silencing Genesis, it is finally revealing the face of the enemy that was coiled inside the text.
They are not the same enemy. The serpent of Genesis is a beast of the field, a local trickster. The dragon of Revelation is a cosmic warmonger. You are conflating two entirely different archetypes separated by 1,000 years of cultural evolution. You are welding a tank turret onto a chariot and calling it unity.
Dr. Vance, you have just made my case. You call it evolution, I call it canonical development. The archetype grows because the threat grows. It starts as the subtle infiltrator, Serpent, matures into the sea monster, Leviathan, and is revealed as the cosmic dragon, Satan. It is the same entity shedding its camouflage.
What you are describing is theological revisionism. It is not evidence. My job is to analyze the text in its context, and in its context, the author of Genesis had no concept of your Satan. You are reading the story backwards. You are solving the mystery before you have even examined the body.
And you are examining the body as if it were a corpse. Your purely historical reading is a faith statement in modern secular historicism. You assume there is no divine author, no unified mind behind the library, and therefore you find none. You are dissecting the text with a microscope, missing the macro design entirely.
I am abandoning your devotional loop to preserve the integrity of the witness. If we allow later texts to rewrite earlier ones, critical inquiry is dead. We are here to prosecute the text, Dr. Finch, not to protect it from its own history.
And I am arguing that you cannot prosecute a mastermind if you ignore his final confession. To reject Revelation chapter 12 is to enter the crime scene with one eye closed. The text's internal connections are the primary evidence. If you refuse to see the dragon, you will never understand the serpent.
The arguments for Exhibit C are now on the record. The formal presentation of cases is complete. We now enter the cross-examination. The curator, from the archive, has been monitoring the deliberations and selected 3 critical inquiries from the jury. Our first inquiry is from juror Helen Cole in Oxford, England, who asks,
If the serpent is a divine being, as Dr. Vance suggests, why is it given a biological curse to eat dust and crawl on its belly? Dr. Vance.
A critical question. The curse is not just biology. It is demotion. It is a polemical statement. This once great shining one, this burning one, has been stripped of his rank and locked inside a biological prison. The curse forces the high-ranking officer to exist as the lowest beast. It is a humiliation sentence designed to mock his former glory.
Dr. Finch, your assessment.
The curse is visual branding. The author, having introduced the serpent as a beast, now cements that status forever. It is an ideological legend explaining why the snake is the enemy of man. Structurally, it brands anti-wisdom as something that belongs in the dirt, ensuring humanity never confuses the subtle with the divine again.
The next inquiry is from Juror Arjun Singh in Bangalore, India, who asks, Dr. Finch, if the serpent is just a literary archetype, does that mean there is no original sin or fall, and that evil is just a human invention? Dr. Finch.
On the contrary, it makes the fall more terrifying. If the serpent is an external monster, then the blame is external. But if the serpent is the archetype of anti-wisdom, then the fall is the story of humanity internalizing the enemy. It means the serpent is no longer just in the garden, he is now embedded in the human condition. The war is now civil.
Dr. Vance, your assessment.
That is a dangerous philosophical turn. The text describes a breach of the perimeter by a hostile agent. To internalize the serpent, as Dr. Finch suggests, is strategic disarmament. It dissolves the reality of an objective adversary and replaces him with a psychological metaphor. If there is no invader, Dr. Finch, then we are just fighting our own shadows.
Our concluding inquiry is from Juror Samuel Adebayo in Lagos, Nigeria, who asks, is the serpent's argument in Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, your eyes shall be opened, actually a lie, or was it the truth? Dr. Finch?
It was the most devastating Trojan horse in history. The statement was factual, but the promise was fatal. Their eyes were opened. They gained knowledge, but they lost life. They gained the technical data of good and evil, but lost the moral capacity to handle it. It was the truth, delivered as a death sentence.
Dr. Vance, your assessment.
You admit he spoke the truth. That is the proof of access. The serpent knew exactly what the fruit would do. This proves he had classified intel. He used God's own rules to sabotage God's own project. He did not lie. He weaponized the truth. That is the trademark of a double agent.
The cross-examination is concluded. The evidence has been entered into the record. The advocates have discharged their duties with the required rigor. The record of their arguments is now sealed. Before this case is charged to the jury, the proceeding requires one final act of analysis. We now transfer custody of the record to the curator in the archive for the forensic profile.
Juror, we must dissect the behavior at the crime scene. Dr. Vance asks you to see a burning one. Dr. Finch asks you to see a literary device. But I ask you to look at the silence. Where is the fear? Ask yourself, if a beast of the field spoke to you today, would you not recoil in terror? Yet the woman engages the serpent without hesitation as a known associate. This forces us to evaluate the historical profile of the burning one. If these beings functioned as throne guardians in the ancient worldview, does that explain the woman's silence? We must ask, did she see a monster or did she see security? And if she recognized the uniform, we must question the narrative of invasion. We are forced to weigh darker possibilities. Was this a betrayal by the guard, or was it a protocol she was expected to follow?
And consider the weapon found at the crime scene. Does the serpent brandish a sword? Or does he weaponize something far more lethal? Syntax. Examine the transcript. The very first question mark in the scriptural record does not come from Adam. It does not come from God. It comes from the serpent. Yea, hath God said... This forces us to confront the ultimate paradox. Why did the Creator design a system where the first act of critical inquiry was initiated by the enemy? We must evaluate the function of the adversary. Did the system require the serpent to test the integrity of the creation? Is doubt the only mechanism that converts innocence into wisdom?
And now, look at the verdict. God declares enmity, eternal war between the serpent and the woman. Has that war ever ended? Or has the Shining One merely changed his uniform? If the enmity is eternal, then the siege of the garden has never stopped. The investigation continues.
The forensic profile is entered into the record. I affirm that this proceeding within the Scholarly Sanctum has been conducted with uncompromising forensic rigor. The burden of judgment now shifts to you, the jury. Here is the charge to the jury. You will file your findings in the Deliberation Room, the comments section below.
Charge number 1. The verdict on the system regarding Exhibit B was the fall of foreign invasion of a perfect sanctuary, Finch, or a structural feature of a forge designed to test humanity with asymmetric warfare, Vance. Charge number 2. The verdict on the agent regarding Exhibit A is the serpent, a beast acting as a literary metaphor, Finch, or a shining one, a burning one, acting as a double agent with security clearance, Vance. Charge number 3. The verdict on the method regarding Exhibit C is the dragon of revelation, the master key that finally unmasks the villain, Finch, or is that identification an act of theological colonization that silences the original witness, Vance.
Charge number 4. The unasked question. If God created the serpent with the capacity for anti-wisdom, is he responsible for the bite? The advocates prosecuted the agent, but not the sovereign. We demand your verdict on divine complicity. Charge number 5. Your verdict. After weighing the evidence of the text and the testimony of the advocates, cast your final vote, serpent or shining one.
This investigation demands the same rigor of itself that it applies to the text. You are not bound by the arguments presented. If you find the logic of the advocates, or even the charges themselves to be fractured, file your dissent in the Deliberation Room, the comment section below.
This investigation does not end. If you believe this relentless pursuit of truth is vital, you belong on this jury. Subscribe to Questions Have Power. Our Deliberation Room is the comment section. The foundational sources for tonight's proceeding can be found in the case file section of the video description for your own continued investigation. The investigation continues with you.